Hey everyone, you're watching Build Series in New York City. I'm your host, Lauren Moraski, and I'm thrilled to introduce this next guest. He released his debut album with Counting Crows in 1993 and went on to score hits with Mr. Jones, Hanging Around, and Accidentally in Love. Now, 25 years later, Counting Crows are teaming up with the band live for a worldwide tour. Adam Duritz, everyone! Yeah.
Thank you.
We're so excited to have you here. So much to talk about. You know?
Hearing our music play before this started, it really made me realize how depressing we are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
really?
It's a huge downer.
Yeah, I mean, you don't intend to write depressing music, do you?
No, I'm just trying to mess with people. Yeah. I want it to be as depressing as possible.
Well, I definitely, from a longtime fan, your songs have made me cry, so.
See?
Yeah, exactly. What about
really,
you guys? Anybody cry Counting Crow songs?
It's not helping anyone, really.
Right, no. You know, August and Everything After, the song that made me cry the most on that album was Anna Begins. And what's the song from that album that really resonates with you today?
I mean, none of them really make me cry, but...
Yeah.
I like Anna a lot. That's a great song. I'm really happy with that song. We were talking about it with a friend of mine the other day because James Vanderbeek called me once when I was younger and asked me, he was doing this movie, The Rules of Attraction, and he needed a scene where he wanted to, he was supposed to, play a song for a girl and get laid, take advantage of her, and he called me up and asked if he could use Anna Begins. He goes, I know it's a terrible, terrible way to use your song, but I'm just sure it works, and I want to use it for the movie. So he plays the song and gets laid to Anna Begins, which is...
I'm sure Anna Begins has been the soundtrack to many people's lives in different ways, right?
I'm sure it got me laid at some point.
Yeah. But do you hear that a lot from your fans? That, oh, this song means so much to me because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah, not always the same thing James was talking about.
Right,
but yeah,
right. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that happens quite a bit. So with this tour, why did it feel right to tour with Live? I mean, you've been friends with them for quite some time, but why
it just kind of came up. They were going out again this summer. It seemed like a good pairing.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen them in a while, honestly, because they split up for a bit.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, we were drinking buddies when we all lived in L.A. I didn't realize that Ed had moved here. He lives right outside of New York, too, now.
Yeah.
I just found that out the other day. So it's just kind of a nice... we spend our life doing this, so it is nice to spend, not necessary, but it's nice to spend some of the summers with friends occasionally. That can be really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we generally make friends with the bands anyways, but it's nice to start out that way.
Do you imagine that you would do something together on stage with them?
We did last time.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it yet, because it's, I don't really think about tomorrow all that much yet.
And the tour doesn't kick off till June.
Yeah, the future is the future. I could certainly see it happening. We probably... got a lot of work to do on our own at first because we have to, sound checks are used a lot for getting more and more songs up and running. But yeah, I could certainly see doing that. It seems like, I'm on one of their records too.
Yeah. So you have a long time history.
Yeah.
I feel like you have that with a lot of bands. I know you toured with Matchbox 20 in the past.
Everything else is long time now. It's just we've been here forever and we're not dead. So yeah.
Not dead. Hence the name of the tour, 25 years and counting.
It was originally 25 years and not dead. But
yeah.
But counting was a cute little pun, and so we stuck with that.
But do you see yourself doing this for 25 more years? I mean,
that's a little ambitious. I don't know. Honestly, I'm pretty unemployable otherwise. So, and I think that's true even more so of some of the other guys. Quite honestly, I can't imagine anyone hiring them for anything.
Your bandmates, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, and your crew.
I mean, they're close friends. They're like family, so I know that a couple of the guys could do stuff.
So you can't back out.
No, we're stuck with this.
They would have no job.
All of our other marketable skills went by the wayside. I'm not going back to video stores, and I'm certainly not washing dishes anywhere but at home again. So yeah.
But you yourself, Counting Crows didn't break until you were in your late 20s, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been in the clubs for 10 years. Another reason not to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the clubs, but not as a method of employment.
But you always wanted to do music, yeah?
I wanted to play music. It's just, lots of people want to play music. Most people, it's never going to happen outside of the clubs you play in, which is okay. When you make a decision to do any kind of art, you're kind of making a decision because it's what you have to do, not because it's a great way to earn a living. Generally, it's not for any art form. We just got lucky in our late 20s that it turned into something else.
Did you know when you were recording August and Everything After that it was going to be something special?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it doesn't mean... I have lots of friends who've made incredible records and nobody bought them. you know, and there are people who make terrible stuff all the time that you just can't tell. I thought it was really good. I thought the stuff we did before that was really good too, though. In other bands, I can look back and see that it was a big step up when we, you know, really made the first Counting Crows record. We changed a lot. It was a different level. But that, again, you know, I didn't know what that meant. It certainly seemed to mean something better than when no one was going to listen to it. I mean, I thought people would have a chance to listen to us. That was a really cool thing.
Was it overwhelming to kind of go from obscurity to the level of fame that you reached shortly after that came out?
Yeah, that part was weird. I don't think I was really cut out for that kind of life. I had to really like learn to adjust to that. And fame's a weird thing for anybody. It's like waking up on a different planet. You have all new gravity all of a sudden, you know. And I was still, as far as I was concerned, I was still me, but everyone else was acting really weird. It just felt like, you know, I used to be able to just walk down the street to do something, and now it was an issue one way or the other, especially in Berkeley. I mean, there were kids camped out on my lawn at one point, which is why I left. There wasn't any going anywhere, which is, it was great career-wise, but it's one thing to just sell a lot of records. It does a great thing for your bank account, but it's a weird adjustment in the just walking down the street part of your life. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think I moved to LA at first because no one cared, and then eventually to New York because it's just there's so many people here, it just doesn't matter. Yeah,
I mean, do you feel like walking around New York where you live now, do you get recognized all the time? Do people come up to you on the street quite a bit?
Yeah, but New Yorkers are really different about it than anywhere else. It's just a tap on the shoulder and, hey, I love John Howard.
Yeah.
This morning, it was great. And I'd be like, I don't even know he played it again this morning. Okay, cool. And then they're gone. There's no pictures or autograph. It doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
They don't need anything from you. They're just kind of coming up to say that they appreciate something.
That must feel good.
Yeah, it's nice. But it's solely an artifact of life in New York. That doesn't really, nowhere else is like that, really.
Sure. Your last album came out in 2014. You said it was one of your favorites, if not your favorite.
Yeah, I think it is my favorite record.
Why so?
It was just a big leap up for me in the change in the way I was writing. It's a big jump for the band to me. That and the record before that, the covers album, Underwater Sunshine, I think are the most interactive, the best we've ever played as a band on a record. I really love those two. Before that, my favorite was probably This Desert Life.
Yeah.
But Somewhere Under Wonderland, I love playing those songs live. There's something about those songs that just really felt good. And it's probably why, in the same way, I think if you ask me which album the guys in the band like to play songs off the most, it's definitely This Desert Life. Everybody wants to play those songs all the time.
Yeah.
Very few of which were particularly well known, but there's just something quirky and weird about that album, and everybody really loves it.
I personally like Hard Candy.
I mean, I love Hard Candy too.
Yeah, that one hit me it came out in like 02, 03. Hit me at a time, just like on repeat all the time. So everybody probably has their favorite. How do you go about picking the songs? I know you change it up every night pretty much.
After soundcheck, Immer and I sit down and we just talk about what we want to play that night, and we put a set list together.
Yeah.
It's somewhat affected by soundcheck because if we had something that someone brought up a couple days before, we'll have rehearsed it that day. If we've got it ready, we'll play it. But really, it's just kind of what we want to do, or if anybody mentions something. I used to send a text out to the band and the crew, sometimes the opening bands every night, that just said, anything you want to play, anything you want to hear. And I still do that sometimes. But, you know, it's just kind of what we're into that night.
Very democratic of you to do that way.
No, I don't say, I didn't count them as votes. They're just suggestions. No, it's a very benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly. Have you been working on some new music?
Yeah, I've got a lot of pieces and ideas. I haven't been putting them together into songs. I just haven't kind of had that urge to do that part of it. But I've got 5 million pieces recorded, just ideas. And actually, we were all together about a week ago. Immer and I played a show here for Garden of Dreams up at the Beacon.
Yeah.
And then we went the next day to Phoenix, and we played a festival out there. And I talked to some of the guys about, I want to find a time in the next few months to get together and woodshed. Just like sometimes I just get Dan and Millard and Immer to come over, and we just spend a week hanging out at my house, you know, putting ideas together. So we're going to do that in the next month or so.
That's cool. So maybe some music down the line.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure we'll have some.
Yeah.
Can't procrastinate forever.
But do you get writer's block at times?
I don't know if it's writer's block. I never really think about it that way. I just don't write, and then I don't write, and then I don't write, and then I write, and then it's all done. I mean, I really don't write very many songs. I write about 10 to 12 songs every few years, and we put 10 to 11 of them on a record. I've just never been prolific the way a lot of my friends are. But it always seems to be about the right songs, really. I mean, I don't write a ton, so I don't have a lot to throw out.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like there's times in your life where you're most creative, whether it's like, whether you're high or low, or?
Yeah, it's definitely when I'm high.
Yeah, well, not high.
I was
like, I stepped into that one.
You know, it's different times. It just tends to be when I feel creative, or I'm moved, you know, some kind of emotional jolt.
Yeah.
I've written songs. I wrote Rain King after watching Dr. Zhivago. I was sitting at home watching Dr. Zhivago, and it's really moving, you know, and at the end I got up and I wrote Rain King, which has absolutely nothing to do with Dr. Zhivago, but it took me about 40 minutes and it was done. It's always been different stuff like that.
You recently started a podcast. Very
Yeah.
cool. I listened to the first episode. I enjoyed it.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's just two music geeks, me and my friend James Campion, who's a journalist and an author. And we were working on a book together. You know, we had done a bunch of interviews over the years, and a couple years ago, James came to me and said, you know, I have so much extra material. This might make a great book. What do you think about, like, doing a book together? And I said, sure. And we started meeting once a week for, like, 4 or 5 hours. We would just talk and discuss things. And after about a year of that, I called him up about 4 months ago now and said, hey, you know this thing that you thought would make a great book? I think it would make a great podcast.
Huh.
So then we just started meeting and recording them. And right away, they were terrible. But after about 4, I finally declared that one of them was good enough to put out. The first 4 were incredibly interesting and absolutely horrible. We said all kinds of smart stuff about things, and it sounded like a couple of idiots. And so then we needed to calm down. We were both like overexcited, and we sounded like it. And we calmed down, and then we started putting them out. And now we do like a couple every week. We're trying to build up enough of a backlog to survive tour.
Got it.
Because we're going to go around America this summer and probably to Europe in the fall, and we've got to have. I don't know that we'll be able to do them so much out there. There'll be some probably when James comes out on the road, but it'll be hard to do very many. Also, when I'm in the middle of playing shows, I can't talk for 3 hours.
Right, you'll lose your voice,
Yeah.
right?
So
yeah.
you know, we're trying to build up enough of a backlog, and we've already got enough to get through it at this point.
Do you think now that the podcast is happening that the book is done, or do you think there's a book in the works still?
The book was always going to take time. He's got to, you know, take the stuff and translate it into. I mean, I've encouraged him. He wanted it to be more of an interview between the two of us, but I really wanted it to be his thoughts on it. I'm less interested in a book that's just dry interviews with me and him, and more on his perspective about music and what he thinks of the stuff we've talked about. Because he's an author, and I'd rather have it be a little more. If it's just an interview book, he'll be lost in that. It won't matter. But I'd like him to be a writer on it. Also, why should I do all the work?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, so.
Right, you do enough work. You're going to be on tour for quite some time.
Yeah, he just put out a book called Accidentally Like a Martyr about Warren Zevon. So
Nice.
For the last 4 or 5 months, he was really doing a lot with, you know, final edits on that. And it's completely done and in the bag now. So he's gone back to working on our book.
That's cool. In the first podcast, you talk a little bit about your upbringing and how you basically traveled around and moved around, and it kind of made you who you are. How so?
Well, I just think I have a different sense of, especially living in America, than most people, because I lived all over it, and I spent a lot of my summers traveling across the country in, you know, family station wagons back then. I think I have a sense of the vastness of it, the scope of the country, and that enters into a lot of my writing, and other deep-sounding thoughts that I can't think of right now. But I'm sure there are some others that are every bit as wise as that one was, maybe. I don't know. We got off this. Believe me, we got right off the serious right away after that first podcast that we put out. We got right back into just being geeks again.
Okay, yeah, you were geeking out in the first podcast a little bit
Okay,
about
glad it
your
happened.
about Big Star and your Pandora playlist and your influences.
Okay,
yeah. Who are you been listening to lately that's been inspiring you?
Well, we are also. I've done a little indie music festival for years called the Outlaw Roadshow, and a bunch of us spun off from it this year, and we're starting a new one called the Underwater Sunshine Festival, which will be this fall in New York at the first few days we'll be at Bowery Electric this year.
Nice.
Again, like where we did the last one. And so I've been listening to a lot of bands to book on that. And there were 2 women in the last week that really knocked me out with their records. One was Michaela Davis, who's from upstate Rochester, and I was looking at a video of hers, an Audio Tree performance. She's playing a full-size upright harp. It might not be a full concert size, but it's a harp. Her guitar player is bowing it like the guy from Sigur Rós, and her drummer is playing drums and then switches over to like playing xylophone with the drums at the same time. It's pretty incredible sound and performance. She's a great writer. She really knocked me out. And then there's a woman named Caroline Rose who just released a new record called Loner. I think it's on New West. I don't know. It's just in the last month or so. It's a brilliant record. It's like, it reminds me a lot of the great albums that people wrote in new wave artists in the mid 80s. It's got a lot of humor to it, but it's a pretty biting humor. And it's just a really interesting set of songs from a woman's perspective, growing up, living in a metropolitan life as a woman and a musician nowadays. I think she's pretty incredible. That record, Loner, is an unbelievable record. I would recommend it to anybody. Those 2 really knocked me out this week.
Awesome.
And I just did some background vocals for my friend Sean Barna for his record, which is going to be called Sissy, which is coming out hopefully by the time we play it on the podcast in a month or 2.
Nice.
But those have been what I've been like focused on the last week or so.
Just the last week. I'm sure it's like it changes every week, right? So
well, there's lots of music.
There's so much music to uncover. So I'll definitely check those out. When you Google Adam Duritz, one of the most searched questions about you is, who is Adam Duritz's Maria? Because you sing about Maria.
Oh. Well, it's the one character that's for the most part not a real person. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is a representation of all the things that make me want to write songs. So a lot of it is me in that. I think originally it also had a lot to do with Maria McKee, who was a friend of mine and an idol of mine at the time. She was a label mate at Geffen. She sings all over August and everything after. And we just did a podcast about famous singers singing backgrounds on other people's songs. And the first things I ever did on a major label were 2 songs with Maria. When I first got signed to Geffen, I was on the first Sweet Relief benefit album. Her and I did a song called Opelousas. And then we did a cover of a Mott the Hoople song called Wish I Was Your Mother. And it was like my first step into the big leagues, kind of. We hadn't even started making our record yet, I don't think. And so a part of it was her. I really idolized her. She had a band called Lone Justice before that. I both idolized her and had a huge crush on her. And I think part of writing those songs then was directed towards her. But more than that, it's really about me.
Yeah. Would you say that there are other characters that you kind of keep going back to through the years?
I'd have to look.
Yeah.
I mean, but most of the other characters are actually real people. So when I've written multiple things about them, I mean, like Goodnight Elizabeth is about Betsy, my ex, years ago. And she's also referred to in I Wish I Was a Girl. So, yeah, I've gone back to things, but it's because they're people. They actually keep interacting with you if you're not careful.
Exactly. But not Maria. She's special. She's different. Yeah. What would you say the biggest misconception about you is?
I don't know. I suppose that I don't walk around moping all day and talking in poetry. That might be one of them. I've had people who were very surprised that I wasn't more tragically poetic all day.
Yeah.
I just do it quietly. I'm very tragically poetic, but just only when I'm alone.
Okay. Yeah, so. All right. So that counts.
The rest of the time, I'm just kind of full of shit, really.
So don't believe anything you said really on stage, right?
No, not that kind of full of shit. It's all true, but I don't know what I'm saying even now. I'm willing to talk without meaning anything, and that willingness will lead me into things that probably aren't true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But nothing today. This is all true.
This is all real deal, real Adam Duritz at the core.
Yeah, so that's different.
What would you say, the biggest difference touring, to bring it back to the tour, is touring now versus back when you first got your start 25 years ago now?
Well, we got rid of that van.
Yeah. Well, that's
one thing.
That's good.
Not really any differences, though. I mean, I think that touring life is a lot the same. I mean, I think I'm a little better at it. I'm probably a lot more disciplined about it, and I'm a lot less drunk.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the enjoying parts of being in a rock band for a long time. It was really fun. and staying out late was really cool, and getting drunk all the time was really cool. But you just can't sustain it forever. Your voice goes, your body goes. You can't play a gig every night. I can't play a gig every night if I have to get drunk to play. And there were times when I did, but I think I nipped that in the bud. Because what you don't want to do is get it to a place where then you have to completely stop drinking. That would be no fun at all. I really like wine.
Yeah.
But I just don't drink every night on the road, or, like a lot of things in life, you just kind of got to get it under control. And so I did, and that's probably the biggest change. I just don't go out and party as much. I'm a lot more like a monk nowadays. But then again, we never cancel gigs because of me anymore.
Really? So
yeah,
it's the other band members.
We had a fan break on the top of one of the buildings 2 years ago. Like a storm came through, blew so hard, it bent a fan blade in D.C., and we had to stop the concert we had to cancel the concert so that there would be no one sitting below it when the 25-foot fan blade inevitably fell and beheaded people.
Gosh.
And then we lost one. We had a gig eaten by a sinkhole last year in San Francisco. Yeah, there's lots of roads that go to the shoreline, but there's only one that goes to the backstage.
Huh.
So you have to get in there, and so does all your equipment. And a sinkhole ate the road the night before the show, and they couldn't fix it. They tried to lay all these steel plates like they do on the freeways over, like they do when they fix the roads here, and they just sunk further into the hole. So, yeah, we had a fan eat one gig, and then a sinkhole ate the other. Those are the only two gigs that have been canceled in the last 2 years, and neither of them had anything to do with me.
Good. Well, you're on a good streak for yourself.
I do not have the power to control the weather, which would be cool. I want to bring that up, that I would love to say I do.
I think I saw you guys at Jones Beach, and it was delayed for a couple hours because of rain.
Well, it's a problem out there because because of the water, it gets under everyone's feet. And if it's not the rain that does it, it's the lightning.
Yeah.
Because if there's a lightning strike, you'll kill everyone in the place.
Right. And
so they make you go out to the parking lot, and there's a radio station you turn to. Yeah, they're really careful about it there. That's happened multiple times when we've played out there, because maybe we bring bad weather with us. We don't control the weather in a good way, but we will bring bad weather.
Yeah.
And apparently it happened there. It happened just like 2 summers ago.
Yeah. I think my situation was years ago, but they're
There's
bringing
one
on the
with
rain.
the Wallflowers, like
Yes.
on the Recovering Satellites tour, I want to say, where they had to move everybody out for a couple hours.
That was the one.
A couple years ago, we played on the 31st. My birthday's August 1st. We played on July 31st. And I came off stage at the end of the set, about to go back on for the encore. My tour manager's there, and he says, hey, listen, the guys that run the place are here, and they've asked, would you just play one more song instead of like the full encore, because there's a storm coming in and they're concerned about it with people, and they'd rather just, if you won't mind, just it's safer. And could you make an announcement from the stage? So I went back out, and I live here, so all my friends were there. Sure. And I said, okay, we're only going to play one more song. I'm sorry about that, but there's a problem. So you guys should just don't screw around a lot after the show. Go to your cars and go home. And so we played one more song, and I went in the back, and I took a shower, changed. I waited for my friends to come back to hang out because it's my birthday at midnight.
Yeah.
So we're going to all celebrate my birthday. And I just waited and waited. And I was like, where is everybody? I texted a couple of my friends, like, where are you guys? We're waiting. Oh, you said to leave. What are you, a fucking idiot? I wasn't talking to you. Like, I was talking to the other people. But all my friends left. And the only people that stayed were Bob Saget's daughters were there, who I've known since they were little kids.
Got it.
And they came backstage. And they're the only people that stayed to celebrate my birthday with me. And then because there was such a big storm, they couldn't get an Uber, so we had to take them home too.
Oh, man.
But which they deserve for staying for my birthday. They should get a ride home.
Totally.
It's the least you can do for your friends' kids. The rest of my friends can go to hell.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, fuck right off.
Talk about a misunderstanding.
Yeah. They're still trying to defend that insanely stupid decision.
Well, I hope you get no rain on this tour, or at least not that it cancels your concerts.
Yeah, we used to start the summers in early July in Florida and like Alabama, and that's just really painful right then.
Yeah.
It's like it'll rain and it stops, but the rain doesn't move. It still stays in the air, and then you just swim out into it. It's horrific. It's 105 degrees, it's just terrible. Now, last summer we started out west in Vancouver, I think, and this summer we're starting in Boise, and that's much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually human weather. By the time we get to Florida, it's it's no problem.
Yeah, smart way to do the
Yeah.
tour. One last question before I send it out to the crowd here. 25 years and counting, the band has largely stayed together as is. I mean, what do you think it is about you guys that have kind of weathered the storm, no pun intended?
I am a really great band leader. I know that because I started off as an incredibly shitty band leader. But I fixed that after that first record. No, seriously, the truth is, it's really hard to keep bands together because there are so many reasons. No matter who you are in a band, you can find a way to do the math that will tell you, I deserve more. It's just true. Everybody can do that. But it kind of doesn't matter how much you deserve if there's not enough left for everybody else. And I think that I realized early on, I love being in this band. I don't want to be a solo artist. It doesn't appeal to me at all. And if that's the most important thing, and this is where you want to spend your life, especially having like spent years not succeeding. So when we finally got a shot, it was not something I wanted to piss away, and I think from the very beginning, at least in my mind, and I think in all the other guys as well, was this is the most important thing. Like this group of us, this thing we have, this is the most important thing, and if you don't respect that, you got to go. But also, we're going to respect it a lot, and we're not going to get into those stupid fights about things, and I think we all went out of our way to keep that in mind. We, weren't looking to get more for yourself on any given day. We're just trying to find ways to make this work for all of us. And I think we really focused on that. And I mean, look, it's 25 years later. It worked. Truth is, it's just 25 years since the first record.
Yeah.
It's been more than 25 years for most of us. And, we're still here, and it's kind of great. It's a family. It's not just the band either. Truthfully, most of my crew has been around for more than a decade too. My tour manager joined us on our first European trip in April of '94. One of our guitar techs just passed away last year. He came by right after that. My production manager, who's also our monitor engineer, his first gig with us was the first gig before we released Recovering the Satellites. Like, those guys have been around a long time too. And we've all just kind of done it together. So, you do that for a while, you start to realize that's important to you. And if that's the most important thing, you'll find a way to make it work, I think is what the deal is.
Yeah.
I'd like to take all the credit for it, but eventually those guys will see this, so probably shouldn't.
Well, we're glad for it. All right, let's get to some questions from the crowd here. All right.
Hello, we'll take our first question from an online viewer. Lynn Crystal wants to know, has songwriting gotten harder or easier for you as time has gone on?
I don't know. It changes all the time, and it changes the way I do it. I don't write. Maybe it's harder. I don't know. I don't write the same way I used to, but I don't know if I should say that. Truthfully, like the last record, we got together for a week with those guys I was talking about, and the first week we went through a lot of material, and I wrote one song right when we finished, God of Ocean Tides. A month later, we got together for another week, and I wrote 6 songs in 7 days. Almost the entirety of the rest of the record was written that week. Everything except for Palisades Park, which was written the next time we got together a month later. But seriously, that was 6 songs in 7 days. It's nearly an impossible level of output. I just couldn't stop writing songs, and it just happened, and it was easy. But then there's like 2 years before that where I don't write a thing, so I don't know whether that makes it hard or easy, quite honestly. I've just never been prolific, so yeah, that's me with the non-answer.
But when it happens, it sounds like you are in that short time frame.
Yeah, for a minute there, I was really prolific.
All right. Who's next?
Hey, Adam. I was wondering, were there any artists that you particularly followed when you first started doing music?
Lots. I mean, when I first started playing music, or just I was really obsessed with REM from the first time I heard the first EP, Chronic Town, which is 81, 82, something like that. I mean, I can remember the needle drop on that in my friend's dorm room at college, and flipping out. And at that point, after that, I had to have every magazine they were even mentioned in. I just was weirdly obsessed with them. Just like strange. I mean, it really wigged me out. I needed to go. I really, really, really wanted to go to Athens, Georgia, the same way you might want to go to Oz. Like, it was magic to me. There was this town in the South that where they love music so much that like 10 bands came out of that same town. They made a movie about it called Athens GA, like in '82, I think. I mean, there was like Pylon and the B-52s, REM. It was just this weird place, but it seemed like heaven to me. I couldn't wait to go there. The weird thing is we got there on our first tour finally, and it was just as cool as I thought it was going to be. But I grew up in a college town, so I was kind of geared to be obsessed with that sort of stuff. You know, I lived in the Bay Area growing up, so we listened to a lot of music. The radio station that we listened to, KSAN, it was weird. It played everything, like rock, funk, punk. I feel like they played country and jazz too. And so I really was brought up on music just being music. And I think as a result of that, I got obsessed with a lot of different stuff pretty early on. You know, and especially because I lived in Oakland before we moved to Berkeley, funk music was a big part of that. Earth, Wind and Fire, the Commodores, P-Funk. I was really, Rick James. I was really freaked out with the way they made music and what it sounded like. I couldn't even figure out how that worked. And then, you know, I started 7th grade in '77, which is the year punk broke, and there was a lot of music that, you know, Elvis Costello and the Ramones, stuff that really knocked me. I think I was listening to the Ramones back then. It gets a little confused in my mind. I remember listening to Elvis for sure right then. Talking Heads' first record came out that year, and I think a couple years later is the first Pretenders record. There was so much. What I really remember most growing up about music is that there's just way too much of it. And that's even better now, kind of. Quite honestly, the time we live in now, which can seem really bad musically because it's so, like, spread out, kind of, I guess is the best word for it. But when I was young, in order to make music at all, you had to go to a recording studio, and you had to spend a lot of money. And even harder than that was to get it out to people, because distribution literally involved pressing up a physical record, which is a fragile thing, or a CD, and then getting a pile of them to go in a truck and take it around the country. You know, and even if a record store, your best case in that situation is that a record store, a mom and pop, loves you, and they play you to all their guys, all their visitors. But in that case, they're going to sell the 3 copies of your record they have right away, and now they don't have it at all. And so that's frustrating for people. So it was a really difficult thing back then to be a young band, to be an independent band was nearly impossible. Now it's like all you really need is your computer and a mic. And to distribute is even easier than that. You just upload it to Bandcamp. There's no risk. There's no investment in that way. That's like, there's no trucks and there's no mom and pops, which is bad for the mom and pops. And for the, well, look, face it, this used to be Tower Records, and it's not. But for bands, it means that, like, it's just incredible. Anyone who wants to can make music, and they can get it out to people. Now, as a consumer, you got to go look for it, because radio doesn't play a lot of cool stuff anymore. It's mostly just, you know, like top 40. But if you want to, you can go look for it online. You can find it, follow them on Instagram, whatever you want to do. You can find so much music nowadays. Like, as a geek, it's heavenly right now. It's just an endless supply of it. And bands may not be able to blow up as they could, but they don't have to break up either. My friends in Mean Creek, they were a band from Boston. They played a lot of the Outlaw Roadshows. They made they were together for 10 years. They made, I think, 5, 6 records. Every one of them was the record of the year in Boston. Not a single one of them blew up. None of them, I don't think they ever got signed except for to a little indie at one point. But they were together for a decade making great music, and they got them a chance to get really, really good. And that couldn't have happened in the past. You'd had a chance to make one record. And then, you know, you would have to get other jobs. And to me, it's changed a lot. I cannot remember for the life of me what the original question was. But I don't think it has anything to do with what I'm talking about now. But in any case, now I think I probably answered that and all of this other wonderment. So
the question was what inspired you, but you did answer it already.
Well,
Yeah,
what inspired me was music.
Yeah.
And now there's even more, you know, and that's still kind of what inspires me. The best thing about being an up-and-coming musician was actually the peer group I had of everybody else who was playing in those clubs in San Francisco, our friends that were in bands. We were each in 3 or 4 bands. We'd go to see each other play. Immer and I lived in a warehouse together, and there was a 2-month period one year where we either played a gig, saw a friend play a gig, or rehearsed every night for 2 straight months, like not a single night off, just all music. And when we blew up, I kind of lost that because you're all touring, you don't have friends like that anymore. That was the best thing about the Outlaw Roadshow was all the other younger musicians I met that have become my friends over the years. You know, because having that peer group back is a great thing. You know, it's kind of my favorite thing about life and music right now.
That's awesome. Well, I think we have time for one last question.
Hi. So I attended the Outlaw Roadshow a couple years ago, and it was really cool. How did you get started with that? And is that still continuing? I know you mentioned a spin-off from it.
Well, Ryan's still doing the Outlaw shows. The way it started was that around the time of Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, I kind of realized that I didn't think we were getting much of an unbiased shake in the mainstream press. I felt like they had kind of decided we were this big band that they could sort of brush off. But in the indie press, in places like AbsolutePunk.net, a lot of the online bloggers, we were getting these long reviews, and there were also these long testimonials from bands like Panic at the Disco and Dashboard Confessional, where they talked about being really influenced by us. And so when we went to do press for that, I said, look, I'll do some of the mainstream stuff, but I want us to hire someone whose sole thing is indie press, specifically online press. And I want to talk to people, because I read a lot of these blogs, and I gave a few that I really liked, and we really explored that realm on that record as far as the PR we did. And Ryan was he had a blog called Ryan's Smashing Life, Ryan Spalding. It's a Boston-based blog, but he talked about music all over the world. And we did these interviews where we talked for like 4 or 5 hours, he and I. We just stayed on the phone after the interview, and eventually he was doing shows. He did one down here at Arlene's Grocery, and I went to the show, and we became really good friends. And we started putting on shows together, first in Austin, then in Austin and New York, and then eventually in Nashville and Toronto. We did Outlaw Roadshows all over the place for the last 6 or 7 years. He's still doing his own stuff now up there, and a bunch of us are also doing Underwater Sunshine now as well. I think Ryan's going to do a show later this year too, I hope, down here. And ours is going to be in October. Underwater Sunshine is based on really the same ethos as the Outlaw was. It's very inspired by what Ryan was doing. It's just I think we all wanted our freedom to do some different stuff. So yeah, that'll continue. It's October 12th and 13th at Bowery Electric.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Very
right
close. All right. Well, thank you so much for those questions. And Adam, thank you so much for coming by today. We were so excited. The tour starts in June. It goes through the fall, right? So
yeah, it goes into late September.
Amazing. Tickets are on sale now.
They went on sale today.
Exactly. So what a celebration. Give it up one more time. Adam Duritz, everyone.
Thanks very much.